Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today is a very sensitive topic day. Why is that? Because we still got issues in this world that have not clearly been addressed. However, with that said, there are individuals, the unforeseen heroes, the ones that don't get the accolades, the validation for the work that they do behind the scenes to make a difference in not only their community, but throughout the world. Today, we have a young lady, beautiful young lady is coming on the show that's going to tell us her story of coming out of poverty, from dealing with her son, being a single mom, and taking all of that trial and tribulation, and still recognizing that she wants to make a difference in everybody's life as well as the world. I'd like to welcome to the show, all the way from Philly, Katherine Ketter. Did I pronounce the last word right? Is it Ketter? Ketter?
You got it right, Andre. Yeah.
Okay. I got it right the first time. Welcome to the show.
No, thank you so much for having me.
You know, we was talking during the pre-interview, and I looked at all of the things that you have accomplished, and things that you're still doing now to make an impact on the world. But before we go down that road, tell the viewers a little bit about your life, how you grew up. Give us a little ballpark on who Kat actually is.
Yeah, so I was raised by a single mom, grew up in a low-income neighborhood. So today the work that I do is a lot of the issues that I'm helping people with is the same issues my family had. How do we afford food and keep the lights on and things like that? So it was really the way that I was raised and how hard my mom worked as a single mom. And I didn't necessarily want to go down that path, but guess what I did? I also became a single mom myself. And so it was coming up and raising my son through an injury that he had that really inspired me to improve things. How do we improve things for, all the communities that we serve? So that's my passion today, is just straight on, it's helping people.
When you talk about, some people say they have to wait for things to happen before they become proactive. You was already doing things prior to your son's situation because you start recognizing the need of change. What were some of those things that was happening prior, before you became a single mom, that you start doing? Because, like I said, your resume is pretty deep. You had to be proactive long before you became a single mom.
Yeah, and I love what you just said, because life is happening all around us. And I think too often we take a back seat, or we watch what life is like for other people, and we're sitting on the couch wondering why life can't happen for us. And so, I think about the grains of sand in an hourglass. We only have so many of those grains of sand. And so, that's kind of my outlook on why I'm trying to make the most of every single day. But, even before that, I kind of understood what my mom was trying to do. And even though we were what you'd probably say poor, we qualified for food programs, but she was a prideful woman, and, she didn't want to apply for those things. She would barter at Christmas time with other artists to, be able to give back to the community. So even though we were poor, the other thing about it was that I didn't recognize that we were, in a disadvantaged position. My mom worked from home so that we wouldn't have to be latchkey kids. And, it was really the way that my mom raised me that set an example of always giving back, of trying to adjust people's crowns behind the closed door, as they say. And, now it's trying to figure out, how do we educate that next generation that's coming up to be servant leaders too?
You mentioned your mom, and it's funny that you talked about being young and not realizing that. I don't even like using the word poor. I just call it, maybe we didn't see the same opportunities as people that we may have came in contact with. But was your dad involved in any of your upbringing?
No, so my dad left when I was about a year old, divorced my mom. Didn't have a great relationship for most of my life until I became an adult. And we have a fantastic relationship today. So, my mom was really navigating things on her own back then.
When and this is kind of I think I can ask you this fairly. What is it like when you grow up as a female in that type of environment with the mother that you see doing these things? You're not recognizing the disadvantages because you're still a child, and most of everybody is on the same playing field with you. So you don't recognize that until you're forced to be in another situation that forces you to elevate. Then you realize, wow, I didn't have this, I don't have this. But to go back, you said you and your father now have a great relationship. How was it without him being there? How difficult was it for you to form a relationship with your father? And did that have any disadvantages for you becoming as a single mom? Because I'm a firm believer there takes both individuals in the household, but that's not always the case. But a lot of times we hear it in our generation, our people of color, that there's usually either one parent household. What's your take on that, and how did that affect you?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was there, I'd say, transiently. So every holiday or a birthday, he was there. I mean, he's always been a great supporter of mine, which I think is what really is important, is that, you have a love from your parents and vice versa, and that you have their support. And I've always had both of my parents' unconditional support in kind of everything I did. How did it affect me? I still have my dad's traits inbred. So, my parents they worked at the telephone company together, which makes sense because today I'm in, the customer service kind of arena. But, it was like my dad's strong sense of himself. And I went to the office with him, a couple times as a kid, not very often. And that I was like, oh, I want to work in an office someday. But there was a lesson that stayed with me. And at one point, my mom, at probably like 8 or 9, my mom said, I just want you to know that as a woman, you need to find your way in this world without depending on the financial support of a partner. And that really stuck with me. And that allowed me, even as a single mom, to have the power of choice. And I talk about that a lot, is being able to choose a relationship that's solid versus having to choose a partner because you need them to help pay the rent or the groceries. So it was those lessons from my parents that really stuck with me. And over time, as I became late teens, went to college, I had a better relationship with my dad. But, I knew that I always had his support from the get-go. So that's kind of what I would say about how it affected me. And, and I kind of impart that lesson to young women today, is make sure that you have your own voice, make sure that you do have something that brings you joy, and make sure that you're able to financially provide for yourself.
When you're talking to these young women, the next generation, how many of them are stuck in that Cinderella story of the knight in shining armor, and how many of them that, since you dealt with them, really was never taught how to be independent?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I think, we grow up as little girls thinking that there's this storybook that's going to unfold. And unfortunately for me, that storybook didn't unfold in the way that I thought it would. So, when I talk to these young girls, it's most importantly having confidence and self-esteem. Even if you can't have this designated career, your own stream of income, it's having enough confidence and belief in yourself that you can see that future. You can, if you're in a bad situation, you can see the exit plan. And there's a lot of young women who come to me and say, hey, I'm in this relationship or this phase of my life that I don't really want to be in. Well, okay, now we have to come up with an exit plan for you. And that might take a while. That could take a year, it could take 2 years. So I think the most important thing is, when I'm working with young women, is just instilling, let's build the confidence that you have in yourself, because that's going to take you to do everything else that you want to do.
What are the age groups that you're dealing with that you mentioned they get involved in these toxic relationships? They don't have the blueprint or the groundwork to actually be self-dependent and self-reliance on themselves. What's that age bracket that you're dealing with that you see a lot of this happening?
I'd say late teens to early 20s, and even in Philadelphia, we're seeing an increase in young teens being pregnant, 13, 14, 15. And, touches your heart to know that they may be going down this path and in a similar situation. And, even I was that single mom that I would have to say, am I going to buy formula or am I going to keep the lights on? And, so when I'm talking to these young women, it's really thinking about what is the picture like. I think a lot of women are interdependent on that partner, but being able to have, even if it's not the full household income, being able to have a side hustle or something that, you do have a little bit of independence. But, the way in which I think society has shifted is, it was get married young, have babies young, worry about the career later. I think now I see far more women thinking about the career earlier, where, I'm seeing some women saying, I want to go to college right away. And then after college, I have this other plan. I mean, and that's fantastic. But I think in trying to solve the problem of poverty, there's still a lot of those discussions that need to be had about, looking at the bigger picture of your life.
Speaking of poverty, we now live since the time period of COVID, we've seen inflation hit the rocket, where even an actual place to live is becoming really unattainable. Let's be real. The work must be cut out for you to even address the little small necessities. You want to see change happen, and I can see you working towards that. But from what you do for a living, what do you think needs to happen to see an impact happen, not just statewide, but globally? Because this isn't just a Philadelphia thing. This is systemic. It's all over the place. Everybody's struggling with trying to figure out healthcare, place to live, food on the table, and basically how to live comfortably. It's not a matter of just trying to be quote unquote rich, but what needs to happen so everybody can at least survive and be happy?
I mean, I think what needs to happen is we remember we each have power, and so when I'm looking at changing healthcare, it's not, I'm going to make this broad sweeping change right now, but I'm going to go to this one person in this one neighborhood in Philadelphia. And guess what? There's 6 or 7 other people living with that person. So let's tackle all of their healthcare. Let's make sure that the apartment is not polluted. Like we're seeing an increase in asthma, probably because of vaping, probably because of the environmental conditions. So I think of it like the power of one, like one person, one family, one neighborhood, one zip code, one city, and then we scale that. But I think what we're not doing is really understanding that lived experience, really meeting people where they are. So, more now these days, you see a lot of healthcare companies like Fabric Health. They're meeting people in laundromats. We're meeting people at bodegas. We're not saying, hey, come to us in the doctor's office and we'll help you, but hey, let's send street medicine out in a mobile van and let's really meet you where you are. So I don't think we're really listening to the people who are in poverty. I think at a very high level, there's law that's happening without taking those lived perspectives into consideration. So that's really where the change needs to happen, is hearing from the people.
You're involved with a company that's really making a major impact in the Philadelphia area, and if I'm not mistaken, through certain other areas throughout this United States, that you're addressing a silent, let's call it what it is, a silent killer. And we're not talking about cigarette smoke. We're talking about low-income individuals that can't get the healthcare attention that they need, even with such programs as Medicaid and all that kind of stuff. These individuals are still having problems, and I call that collateral damage. But you're now working with an organization that is really becoming the forefront leader in recognizing this stuff and actually making a statement about it. Tell me about your role here and what you guys are actually doing.
Yeah, so I'm the Associate VP of Member Engagement for Jefferson Health Plans. We're part of a larger integrated Jefferson Health system, and pretty soon we're going to be within the top 15 nonprofit hospitals in the country. So, that just gives us a little bit more power to impact more people. We serve about 380,000 Medicaid, Medicare CHIP members around Philadelphia, across Pennsylvania, and then we also do Medicare in New Jersey. So what my team is doing is really engaging people, again, that model of where we are. So during COVID, we saw a lot of people calling us if they had a problem, but now they're saying, hey, I want to see you face to face, and I want to meet you out at this location. So what we did as a pilot is we placed a couple navigators in health clinics and said, hey, if you're uninsured, if you're underinsured, you can call us, you can email us, you can see us at one of these locations. And so now people are walking in and saying, not just, I'm uninsured and I don't know how to navigate the system, but my mom is, my grandmother is, my cousin is. So helping all of those people get insurance, and then they don't have to pick us as a plan. So they can pick any plan that best suits them once they kind of make the applications with us. And then we're helping them with things like LIHEAP for the heat. We're helping them with electric, with SNAP, with food stamps, all those government programs that I think right now there's also a big stigma, both for those who are legal citizens of the country, and then there's a large swath that are not legal citizens, and then there's a stigma with seeking care. I don't want to be reported to immigration. So, my team really works from their hearts with compassion and saying, we just want to help you. We don't want to get you in trouble, but we want to make sure that you're connected to all these resources that you probably don't even know about.
How difficult has your job become with the immersion of the illegal immigrants being undocumented, but still, with that set aside, no matter what the situation is, they're human.
Mm-hmm.
They're here for a reason. It's not my role to say you can come here or you can't come here. You're here. No more different if I was in another country and I'm sick and needed something. I would expect for humanitarian efforts to still be put out just because we are human. How has that affected you guys, and what have you guys done to address that without getting any backlash?
Yeah, so we have a refugee medical center underneath Jefferson where we service mainly refugees that are here seeking asylum. And, you put the politics of immigration aside, it really is, hey, we have a duty to care for people. And I think, that's really what we're doing well is, we're helping different populations access care, figure out, maybe you can't apply for insurance, but your children are eligible, underneath you. So I think, again, reducing that stigma of applying, but, we're really delegated to certain types of care like that, LGBTQ care for, again, our immigrant population. So, like you said, it's really a humanitarian effort. It's really, we do what's right, even when it's difficult. And when you can put that person or that patient at the center of what you're doing and put the politics aside, that's when you're really making that difference.
I had no idea there was a special care for the LBG community. What is that? I never even heard of that. That's something new to me.
Yeah, so we also have a primary care clinic that just serves LGBTQ and primarily older adults that identify. So making sure, again, there's cultural competence involved, and they have this safe place where they feel like they're going to get equal care. They're not going to be judged, whether that's by a provider or that's someone sitting in the waiting room. So that's really what Jefferson is doing well, is understanding the needs of different communities and saying, hey, we're going to be the first to step up and make sure that you're taken care of.
Your son was diagnosed with a situation. How much of that situation impacted you when you went to try to get treatment for him that made you decide to really go on this crusade? Was there a lack of knowledge on their part, lack of resources, financial? What was some of the things that you was dealing with in your own personal journey with your son and his medical treatment that you also had to address, that you wanted to make sure that wasn't going to happen with the organization that you're in now, and that these things would be addressed?
Yeah, so, Aiden's story, Aiden was shaken by his biological father, was not expected to survive, and had a traumatic brain injury at 3 months of age. So that really was the second part of my story, is that was the impetus for getting into healthcare. And it's why I've stayed here. And a lot of people will say, like, I've been doing this for 27 years. How do you stay passionate every day? Because I have an Aiden in my house. And so Aiden is also one of our plan members. So, when someone's calling into member relations, I say, think of my son on the other end of that phone. And that's really why I decided to go into get my master's in public health, is I wanted to make change. I saw some of the issues that he dealt with, multiple providers, trying to schedule all these appointments when, as a working single mom, I still had a job to do every day. And that's the difference, is what I bring is, like, I'm the health plan associate VP, but I'm also the member of or the mom of one of our members. So, I don't answer phone calls. I don't answer text messages. I throw out the postcards, but I'll go into the member portal when it works. So I think having that different insight into how members really get care, it's changed the whole trajectory of what I wanted to do with my life.
You're now also the CEO of your own company, helping people to navigate. Explain that a little bit, and what was the purpose of also creating your own brand and your own company?
Yeah, so in 2022, I brought a diversity mentor program to the health plan, which paired anyone of any level with an executive mentor for a year. And out of that and many more conversations, I saw there's really a gap for our younger professionals, those 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds that are entering the workforce, and they don't know how to get to that next level. They know they want to get there, but maybe it's their professional presence that is posing a problem. They might not know how to speak in a meeting. They might not know how to self-promote. And so in 2023, I started my own consulting agency where I help people navigate, whether it's the career, it's public speaking, it's speaking on national stages, getting those next level opportunities, because it's really all about how do people unlock the best versions of themselves, and how do they also get out of their own way. So, part of mentorship is just being able to see something from someone else's perspective. So that's what encouraged me to kind of develop my own consulting agency.
What are you running into more with your own consulting agency? Like what categories seem to be the most prevalent that people are coming to you saying, I need help here with?
Motivational speaking. I mean, I think if you're on Instagram any day of the week, almost everyone is a motivational speaker. And I mean, that's wonderful, but a lot of people are coming to me saying, I don't know how to unlock opportunities. Like, how do I get paid to do this? How do I really put the best version of myself out there? So I'm seeing a lot of that, but I'm also seeing a lot of people that say, hey, I'm doing this in my career, but it's not satisfying to me. And how do I get to that next level? So, I'll help them do an assessment, like a skills builder assessment. And that unearths a lot of information about what they really should be doing that's going to make their lives, happy and productive. So those are really the two categories I see most often.
If what makes you just hit something. Everybody is a motivational speaker, and you definitely want to get paid to do things. But what experience do you bring? What makes me want to go to you? What do you bring to the table that will make me want to put my trust in you and your services?
I think I bring my authentic self, and that's something I pride myself on, even in the workplace, is being that leader that can bring their authentic self to work, so that staff feel, hey, if she's real and genuine, I can also reveal these things about myself. So I think it's that genuineness. And, I had a client that sent me a message on Instagram the other week, and then I had a meeting with her, and she said, I wasn't expecting this. She said, I don't know what I was expecting, but she said, every other coach I've worked with, they're pushy. They want to get me to sign on the services. And I said to her, it has to be a right fit. So you have to feel in this consulting call that we have an energy to connect to each other. And I think, beyond the decades of experience that I have in business and leadership, it's also being my genuine self, helping people feel comfortable, unlocking who they really are, but really, who are they also meant to be? And so, that's really, I think, the difference that I bring when I'm coaching someone.
You're getting ready to be featured in USA Today, Business Insider. You've also been a featured on iHeartRadio, the San Francisco Inquirer. I mean, evidently you must know what you're doing. Um, what? Why so many accolades? I mean, what are these people seeing in you that's drawing attention?
Again, I think when I'm on stage, and I've done a number of, I think I'm doing, 8 or 9 keynotes this year in different cities and mainly healthcare conferences, but all types of, conferences. I bring that authentic self. I'm a master storyteller at heart. And, when young people ask me, what are the 2 skills I need? You need to be a storyteller and you need to know data and you need to know how to tell the story of that data, to your supervisors and your leaders. So I think when people are booking me and, there's all different topics. Sometimes I speak on mental health in the workplace, employee satisfaction, customer service. There's an element of that storytelling, but I also blend that with scientific facts. And so, it's not just me going on Instagram being motivational. It's also blending that with actual factual research. And I think that's what kind of sets me apart from other speakers. And, that's why I've been featured in some of these national publications as well, is just blending my genuine nature with storytelling and scientific facts.
What's your end game? You're doing so many beautiful things for your community, for the world. What is your end game here? There has to be a
that's a great question. So when we think of like that, those grains of sand in that hourglass, I only have so many of those grains left in my career and then in my life. So it's legacy. If I die tomorrow, I want people to say, wow, Kat really cared about people and she took care of her employees and she was a great mom and great partner. So it's really that legacy. And so now, I'm in my 40s now about teaching that next generation. And, that's part of why I do coaching and mentoring. It's not just for the financial incentives. It's also because I'm now working with 20, 30-year-olds that they are going to be the future. And so imparting the skills that I've learned and the lessons that I've learned. So, it's legacy. I think we have all those tangible things that we want to do. When I retire, I want to travel more and I want to have a consulting agency that's really productive. And like, sure, would I love to be on, the Today Show and, all those accolades that we think are tangible, but the intangible is I want to leave a legacy that people remember and that actually changes both healthcare, but also the communities.
How can the viewers reach out to you?
So it's Kat Ketter Coaching on basically all platforms, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, and my LinkedIn is Kat Ketter.
Kat, do me a favor. You definitely got that beast mindset. And I appreciate you taking time to come on here and share such a beautiful story, providing excellent information. What keeps you going every day? Like, seriously, like you said something that I like. When you're working, it's not work. You love getting up, doing what you do. What keeps you in that beast mindset to keep going?
Yeah. So the thing I want to leave you with is you only get to do this once. You only get to do this life once. There are no do-overs and you don't know when that once is going to be gone. So, every morning I wake up thinking, how am I going to impact things today? And, I've had some of this since I was a kid, just ingenuously in me. But I think you only get to do it once. Life is not as long as we think it is. It's actually really short in perspective. So live to the fullest. Don't be fearful of things, and just go out there, put yourself out there. And that's really how you become successful.
Kat, thank you once again for coming on the show, providing such great information. Keep making changes to your city, to the world. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show.